Hello, welcome to N-Scale Friday. I'm John, and today we have a locomotive from Atlas. So let's go over to the workbench and take a look. Alright, so here's what we're looking at today. This is an ALCO C420 from Atlas, and the one I have is Delaware and Hudson. I'll talk about that in a second, but first I just wanted to show you what it comes with. We have a warranty card here, exploded view drawings, and then the quick start DCC guide. Yes, this has DCC and sound in it. So as I was saying, this one has DCC and sound, and I counted 10 different roads with the high and low nose variants. They actually have 3 different versions of the C420 that are high nose or low nose, and they have other different options on them depending on what's prototypically appropriate. The DCC and sound version of this model is $249.95, and it has an ESU Loc-Sound Select Direct Micro in it. The DC only version of this model is $139.95. Also 10 different road names, and there's also an undecorated version of this in all 3 variants, high and low nose, etc., for $139.95. So if you want to get an undecorated one and paint it up the way you want, you have 3 different versions to choose from to make it appropriate to what you're trying to model. Something else I forgot to mention is that with the DCC and sound, and also with the DC only versions of this, there are also multiple numbers, and you can see that the one we're looking at has 417 right there. So as usual, I have scrutinized the paint job on this model, and I have to tell you that the separation lines between the gray and yellow and the blue and yellow are all very crisp and clean, and the paint is applied in a way such that it's thin, so it doesn't obscure any details. And what I'm talking about are details in the grill, or grills, I should say, stuff like that. Something else I noticed about the paint on this model, which I think is pretty cool, is this is patched around the 417, where that 417 was applied there. And something else I'm noticing is that it seems to me like the trucks have more detail than what I'm used to seeing in N-Scale. So it's pretty cool. One other thing I will mention is that most of the smallest writing on the locomotive is not legible, but if you look really hard, you can make out some words. So just overall, though, it's a very clean and good looking, it's a sharp presentation. Something else that I noticed when I pulled it out of the box, which I thought was pretty cool, is how the railings are yellow, but the stanchions are gray, and where they meet, the stanchion stays gray and the railing stays yellow. So they're not just painting a big yellow line across the top. So that does make the stanchions and handrails look like separately applied pieces, separate from each other. Do you know what I'm saying? Of course, the whole rail is separately applied, but they look like they're separate from each other too. So that's a nice effect as well. Okay, so looking at the front now, and the first thing I notice on the front that strikes me as looking really good is the horn. And we'll take a closer look at that when we look at the top of the locomotive, but it is a separately applied and very finely rendered piece. To me, it looks like a brass part. Now, I don't think it is, and I'm not going to take it apart and try to figure it out. I'm 99% certain it isn't, but it looks like it's a brass part, and it looks really cool. The other thing, and this is kind of unusual for N-Scale, is down here. What do you notice there? That's a cut lever. Cut levers on N-Scale locomotives is not a very common thing, so that's really cool. Other details that are kind of standout features are things like the jacking pads, which are also on the back. That's something that's not always included on models like this. Something else you'll notice looking at the front end detail here is that the hose detail, the MU and air hoses, they're molded, but they're painted a different color. So they look almost like separate pieces. It's a nice effect. And then since we're looking at it, I will point out the Accumate knuckle coupler. So looks good. And I do like the fact that the logo looks really cool. It's just This is a neat paint scheme. Taking a look at the fireman side real quick here, you can see the details pretty much the same. And I don't know what it is about the trucks, you know, maybe because it's molded in a lighter plastic color, it kind of forces the detail to pop out a little bit more. Because, you know, when you have a black truck, everything kind of gets lost in the shadows underneath the sill there. But these just look really good to me. And then, of course, on this side, you can also see the patched number. So, yeah, we're going around this whole locomotive here. And I will point out the back detail, very similar to the front, including the molded but painted a different color hose detail. And another cut lever. Pretty darn cool. I had to turn it a little bit because I want to point out the MU receptacle right here. That's pretty cool. It would be just as easy for them to just mold the deck all the way across and not have that there. But not only did they include it, but they also painted it red, so it stands out even better. That's cool. So I was talking about how the paint on the model is thin enough not to obscure details, and this is what I'm talking about. Look at the grill over here toward the back of the locomotive where I'm holding it. That's done in a way that it looks like it has some depth. And if your paint is applied too thick, all that depth goes away, or the illusion of depth, I should say. And I was talking about the horn earlier. Just wanted to give you a close-up shot of it. That's a good-looking horn. And of course, it's a separately applied piece. And then there's also, you can see the antenna there. And then, depending on the prototype-specific detail of the model that you're ordering, it may or may not have a dynamic brake. So that's one of the prototype specific details they mentioned specifically on the website. So we've come full circle looking at all the sides of it. And something else they mentioned on the website that's hard to see here because they're behind the side frames of the trucks there, but they are blackened metal wheels, which is pretty cool. The model also has Atlas's scale speed motor, which is, I think, the trick behind how slow these things can run smoothly. So let's run it and see how it looks. All right, so as we're getting ready to watch this thing run, I do also want to mention that the fuel tank is also a prototype specific detail that Atlas is including depending on the prototype that the model is representing. So let's check out this scale speed motor in action. So as usual, you can see it runs really well. And I tried it without the sound. It's very quiet too. It has a dual flywheel motor. And as I mentioned before, it's Atlas's scale speed motor. It really crawls at low speeds. And sounds good too. The only thing missing there is the big black cloud of smoke that ALCOs are famous for. Okay, so we're looking at the light here. This is the front headlight, obviously, and it comes on with the number boards as well. That's a warm white LED in there. and it's directional. So in forward, you see the front headlight, and in reverse, you see the rear headlight. Let's look at that real quick right now. Looks good. The number boards look really good. They're very crisply printed. All right, so hey, I'm really impressed with this model. Not only does it have a cool paint job, but the paint's executed in a way that makes the lines crisp and sharp. It has some cool little diagonals in it. The herald looks good on the model. I think it's great that Atlas has come up with 3 different sort of body types for this, including the high hood and low hood, and then other details like whether it should have a dynamic brake hatch or not. So that's really cool. It sounds good. I mean, it sounds like an ALCO, right? I was expecting when I started to throttle that thing up on the track over here that thick black smoke should be coming out of it, but but it's a model, so that doesn't happen. Anyway, great job, Atlas. I think it's a nicely done model, and I'll see you next time.